Bear with me, I'll be with you shortly.
Okay.
World Jam Global Radio, this is Clarity. This is Clarity.
Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime.
I want to say big good evening going out to each and every single one of you out there. This is Kervin Julian on World Jam Global Radio's Issues Today.
Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime.
We are going out live right across the world.
I paid for my crime.
And if you're picking up this broadcast, you can now share it.
About the system, it was all about survival. It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young and foolish to stay in school. I learned my lessons in the streets. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime.
My guest today is Yolanda McNair.
I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime.
Okay, it is time to share.
My time, I paid for my crime.
Let's get Issues Today broadcasted all across the world as I introduce my guest Yolanda McNair very shortly.
Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now sit back and think it over.
So we're going to have
the life I used to live, I wouldn't do
a live broadcast on Facebook pages from here on in.
But I was nobody.
My name is Kervin Julian. This is World Jam Global Radio, and the program is Issues Today.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
You can post questions. We will see, we will answer.
Already did my time. Already did my time.
say evening shout-outs going out to Pat Dulcie, Marina, Josiah. Good evening, DJ Matt.
Trying to cope with this living hell. This living hell.
Once again, my name is Kervin Julian. This is Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. We are going out live across the world.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy
My special guest, Yolanda McNair,
Thy will
is getting ready in the hot seat.
is in heaven.
She is my special guest today.
This day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us
And we are going out live across the world.
deliver us from evil. For thine
Good evening, Donna Faye.
power, the glory forever and ever. Amen. Ever my crown, ever my crown, ever my crown, ever my crown. Pay for my crown. All those drive-by killings, stop them. It ain't about nothing. He who was
If you are in tune, if you are tuned into this broadcast, you can also get us on www.worldjamglobalradio.com,
So I can get-
or you can follow us on the TuneIn app. Don't worry about that. You can get us on every platform available.
This is my message to all of my
Please share. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
worldwide.
This is Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. We are going out live. Very shortly, I'm going to introduce to you my very special guest, Yolanda McNair. And believe you me, she's got a lot to say. Here we go. Just want to take this time to thank each and every one of you that are joining me live across the world on World Jam Global Radio's Issues Today. And it's time to introduce my very special guest, Yolanda McNair. Good evening, good afternoon, Yolanda.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you very much. So glad that you can join us here today on World Jam Global Radio and Issues Today in particular. I just want you to take a few moments to introduce yourself and tell the audience just a little bit about you.
Hey, my name's Yolanda McNair. I live in Detroit, Michigan. I'm the type of person who doesn't like when someone is being bullied by anybody. I've never allowed someone to be bullied around me. I don't like people who abuse their power or authority over someone else. I've always been that kind of person that stands up. I'm the mother of Adacia Miller. My daughter was a light. She was the kind of person that everybody wanted to be around. Everybody's friend became her friend instantly. She's the kind of person who would give you the shirt off her back without hesitation. You needed her help. If you needed something, she would make certain that you got it. She was a light to my whole family, cousins, aunts, uncles. Everybody loved her. Her siblings adored her. I don't think Adacia had an enemy anywhere at any time. And she loved life. She loved everything about life. From getting up.
What kind of child was she?
She was a very independent child. She was I took her to Head Start and she loved it. When I took her to kindergarten, she told me I can walk myself in. I'll see you after class. Walked straight up to the teacher, introduced herself. She was the kind of kid that, would share, would help, she loved learning things. She loved everything, science, math, writing. That was her passion. She grew up writing haikus and poems, short stories. She always had a love for art. She was learning how to play the guitar, um, and she always had something that she wanted to do and learn. She was that kind of person.
Just one thing, Yolanda. If you've actually got the show on in the background, could you stop it
Hmm?
or turn it off? Do you have the show on in the background?
Yeah,
Yeah,
on my
because
computer.
yeah, I've got that feeding back on me. If you don't have to worry about it.
Okay,
You will get it live. Okay, so
okay,
but I've got that. I can hear that coming back through me on my headphones.
okay. I just turned it off.
Okay. So carry on. I mean, you're telling us about your daughter.
She was the she just wanted everybody to be happy, see everybody laughing, having fun. She would gather all the kids in the neighborhood and take them to the park, um, play games with them. She was an aunt. She had four nephews, doted on them. Everything that she wanted to learn or did learn, she would show them. She she was a great friend. She had one friend who was very ill during her pregnancy, and once she had her daughter, she came home, but she needed somebody there with her. My daughter went over there every day and took care of that baby so that her friend could recuperate. Um, she would even stay a couple of um, hours longer so that the young lady's fiance, when he got home from work, he could get a little bit of a nap in before he would take over watching the baby. Um, he was, I mean, she was that kind of person. Always a giver, always to a fault.
Wow. She sounded like a very special individual indeed, Yolanda. Um, what was she like as in her school days? How did she get on with her peers? How did she get on with her teachers?
She she would help everybody. She had, like I said, Adesha always had friends. She never had somebody she didn't get along with. You know, she was the kind of person that if there was some sort of conflict or whatnot, she wanted to talk that out, get that fixed. Um, she believed that words could be used to fix a problem. Um, you know, fighting with somebody physically was an absolute last resource. Um, but she was never a person that could be bullied or pushed around either. She knew and understood her worth and standing her ground. Um, but she was somebody that her friends, looked to, as a confidant or just that person that helped them get out of their mind for a little while, whatever issue that they were having. They could just go have fun, just plain fun.
Wow. Did she have any siblings, Yolanda? Do you have any other children?
Yes, yes, she has two brothers and a sister.
Okay. And how was she?
Uh,
How was she throughout her growing up years with her brothers and her sister and her siblings?
Adesha was the eldest.
Okay.
Um, she always, made sure that they were safe. Matter of fact, she was a little over a year old, almost. Matter of fact, she had just turned two, and her young brother Shane, who's right up under her, um, he was born in December, and he was choking, and she came and got me because I couldn't hear him choking. It was that kind of choking, he cut off all his airway. He wasn't able to make any kind of sound or anything, and she came and got me, and that literally saved his life. And she said, "That's my brother. I got to take care of him." She, 2 years old, sitting up holding the baby in her arms, rocking him to sleep. Um, she doted on her siblings. She very rarely called rank on them, but when she did, they listened. She was, "I'm the oldest, but this is what's going to happen, and then we're going to do it now." She didn't get an argument from them about that because she didn't um, beat them down with the fact that she was the oldest child and that she was, second in authority to me. She was always there for them. My children, if you wanted one, you could find them all. That was, they were always like that. Um, My youngest child is from a second marriage, and he is 13 years younger than Adesha. And she said, "This is my baby." I remember Shane was my baby, but now I'm a big sister, and she looked out for him uh, with more concern than for herself at all times. In fact, for his 12th birthday, she said, "We're going to do absolutely everything that you want to do." Played every kind of game that he wanted to play. Spent the entire day with him. I mean, from the time that they got up until they went to sleep, they were together.
Would you say that your family was a very close family? Not just the immediate, those that lived within your household, but uncles, aunties. But was you a close knit family?
Extremely close. My family, we got together every weekend. It was at either my house, one of my aunt's house, my grandparents' house, but every weekend as I grew up, we got together. And my cousins and my siblings, we did the same things with our children. We made certain that they saw their cousins every weekend, that they understood the bond, that they understood our family creed, which is my family, my life. And it's taken so seriously that the majority of the males in my family have that tattooed on their neck. Everything is family to us. Breathing is family.
Well, just to kind of introduce what's coming up on the show, I'm speaking with Yolanda McNair, a mother who faced her worst nightmare. Losing a child is probably the hardest thing a parent can do. But losing a child to the authority that you were supposed to trust is probably 10 times harder. You lost your daughter in absolutely inexplainable circumstances. Do you want to take us through what happened on that fateful day, Yolanda?
Yeah. Adesha was celebrating her upcoming birthday. She was of the same mindset as I am. If your birthday's on Sunday or Monday, how much fun can you have? Her birthday was coming up on a Monday. So that weekend before, she was out celebrating her birthday. She was invited to a party by a young lady that lived a couple of doors down from us. And depending on which witness statement you want to believe, 15 minutes or 45 minutes after my daughter arrived at that party, she was dead. My daughter was murdered by a Detroit police officer by the name of Isaac Lee Parrish III, one day before her 25th birthday.
Okay, so to in layman's terms, I suppose you can ask the question is, what was the police officer or the off-duty police officer doing there?
It was his home, his party, his family and friends at the party. Of course, there's all these conflicting scenarios that they want to give us, what's their hot word for it? Narrative of how my daughter was shot. Between the day that she was shot and a couple of days before her funeral, I had 5 different versions of how she got shot that came from the police department.
Was your daughter an invited guest to the party or gatecrasher?
No, she was invited by somebody that was invited to the party.
Okay, so she wasn't somebody that gate crashed and come to create trouble. She was an invited guest.
Right, a tag along. They were her and the young lady were together earlier that day, and she knew that my daughter was celebrating her upcoming birthday, and she said, "Well, I know this party. You want to come with me? That way, you at least have a chance to have a party sort of before your birthday."
Do we have any idea what was going on in the house or in the party in the lead up to the officer, off-duty officer, because for me, I know we're supposed to respect officers, and whether they're off-duty or they're on duty, they're still officers. I get all of that. But I think, sometimes, if you're in the concepts of a party in your home, under the influence of maybe you might have had a drink or two yourself, I think, you put down your officer's hat and, you're in the throes of the party, right? So do we have any understanding as to what was going on in the lead up to the incident that led to the fatal shooting of your daughter?
Nothing that I could say was true, because like I said, I got 5 different stories. The officer claimed he was talking to people and that my daughter came up on his right side where his gun was holstered and somehow managed to trigger the weapon to shoot herself. Which, they stopped short of saying my daughter shot herself. She just somehow the gun was
let's just pause here. First question, let me ask you. How old is your daughter? How old was your daughter when this took place?
24 years, 364 days old.
24 years. So she wasn't a 6-year-old with a curiosity conscience.
No.
And she'd heard of guns and knew that guns were dangerous.
Right. His weapon was concealed.
Right. So what would possess her to approach? Was she aware that he was an off-duty officer, or he was an officer of some sort?
I don't know for certain. The young lady that took Adesha to the party is his first cousin, but to this day still lies about even knowing who he is. So I couldn't speak to what Adesha knew about him. The fact that his weapon was allegedly concealed on his body, she would not have known that he had it. The scenario is that my daughter supposedly approached him from behind or from the side, and in an attempt to get a hug from him and set the weapon off. He's a complete stranger. This is her absolute first time meeting him. My daughter would not be hugging on him, especially in light of the fact that he's married at his home with his wife. That would never have happened. Adesha was a person of principle. And one of the things that she was dogmatic about was the fact that if you're married, you're married. You deal with that situation. Do not approach me. If he were to be in the attempt to pursue her, she would have told him flat out, let's go tell your wife. So, like I said, everything about that situation has some sort of conflicting report. I have witness statements that say 15 minutes after my daughter arrived, she was killed. I have witness statements that say 45 minutes after my daughter arrived, she was killed. She was standing, she was dancing, she was doing, and of all the things that my child did, the one thing she didn't do was dance. Adesha never danced, not even as a kid. So to say that she was dancing, no, they went even a step further. They said my daughter was doing an exotic dance on the ground, but that story didn't come out until after a reporter asked me what my daughter did for a living. And I said that she was a licensed massage therapist specializing in physical therapy. So it went from being a physical therapist to a stripper in the police department's scenario.
Wow.
They took that little bit of information and made it my daughter's doing an exotic dance on the ground. That's how she got shot. Because the thing is, my daughter was shot in her chest. The bullet went through her lung and through her heart. But the officer claims that his gun was in a in-the-waist holster within his clothing, pointed down at the ground. So how does my daughter get shot in the chest if your weapon is actually where you said it was?
In this scenario that they tried to build up, so your daughter is supposedly has approached the officer, off-duty officer, with his concealed weapon, and she's supposed to have reached for his weapon while it was concealed. She didn't. I take it she didn't take it out of where it was concealed. She's triggered it from.
No.
She's triggered it from where it was, which would be in a holster, in his side, in his waist, inside of his jacket or someplace, and manages
inside of his shorts.
inside of his
Right.
shorts, and manages to shoot herself in her chest without him getting injured himself.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
how many? Was it just the one gunshot?
Yes. Yes, it was. And it was from a rather large caliber weapon.
Was it his registered weapon as an officer, or was this an additional weapon
Yes.
that he had to his name?
It was his registered weapon as an officer. It was his service weapon.
His service weapon. Okay.
He, like I said, he claims that it was in a neoprene holster within his pants, between his boxer shorts and his shorts, up under his shirt. Which one? There's no physical way to have reached the gun and triggered it. I've spoken with 7 gun experts, one including a Marine sniper instructor, who said there's no physical way for that gun to have ever been reached if it was under all of those circumstances, as he claimed. One expert is a forensic expert, an engineer, and a mathematician. Very, very smart man. And him and his wife spent 4.5 hours in their garage trying to recreate this alleged accident, only to come up with, at best, in a fantasy world, the gun would have been able to turn 180 degrees, stay up in the air, and fire. But that still would not have got my daughter in her chest. At best, she would have been shot in her stomach or her hip.
Okay, so I want to try and recreate as much of this as we can so that the audience who are listening from various different parts of the world can get an understanding as to what it is that took place that day. At the time that your daughter was shot and received those fatal injuries, whereabouts in the house was she? And what was it? Were they witnesses? Was it around the partygoers, or had they separated into another place?
Well, that's a very interesting question as well. The one 911 call that came in out of 40 people at a party came in 25 minutes after my daughter got shot. The caller was the officer's wife. Her statement was that somebody got shot in her house. Then but although the witness statements say they heard a firecracker and saw my daughter fall, regardless of where these people were within this party, in this backyard, in the dark, very dimly lit party outside. So I could not speak to exactly where my daughter was. I myself do believe that she was in a house and she was shot and that they brought her out. There's no way for her to have physically walked herself out of the house. Like I said, she died instantly. But she was at this party. The party was in the backyard. At the time that my daughter was shot and killed, the party had been in full swing for 6 hours. It's a fish fry. He has his relatives from infants to adults. He has friends, co-workers, neighbors at his house. Like I said, there was a minimum of 40 people there. There's no video footage, no phone calls from anyone else. Only one phone call out of 40 people, and it came 25 minutes after she got shot.
Was she known? Was she known to other people at the party apart from the friend that she went with?
No.
Okay, so but the off-duty officer obviously was quite popular amongst those that were there at the party with him, right?
Right.
Okay. So were there any tests done on him, for influence of alcohol or possible drug use of any sort?
They did nothing. They did not follow any policy, protocol, or procedure when it came to this officer.
So this guy has been at a party off duty, right? But he's been at a party for over 6 hours at his address with various guests from the neighborhood and etc., where I would have imagined drinks would have been flowing freely, probably barbecue and high spirited. And he's discharged his weapon, or his weapon has been discharged, and no one has tested to find out if he was under the influence of anything at the time that his gun was discharged in the killing,
resulting in death. Right. I asked the investigating officers about that. I said, because they made it such a big deal, they even put it in the newspaper, my daughter's blood alcohol level, which was not legally drunk. She's of legal age to drink, and she wasn't driving, so it was an insignificant piece of information. But anything to try to discredit my daughter as being a human being of quality or of worth, which is what they do every day. The police departments do it, and the press goes right along with it, and trying to, victimize the victim a second time. But no, they never checked him for any drugs or alcohol. They didn't check him for any gunshot residue. He had no injuries. This officer's statement was, I didn't know it was my weapon that went off when I heard the sound. I didn't know it was my weapon that went off when I felt the burning sensation on my leg. I didn't know it was my weapon that went off when I saw her fall. I knew it was my weapon that went off when somebody pointed out a hole in me in my shirt. That doesn't sound like somebody in their right mind. That doesn't sound like a 16-year veteran of the police force.
He would have been familiar with the sound. He would have been familiar with the feeling that he would have felt with his gun going off, vibrating against his body. He would have been familiar with the closeness and the proximity of the sound that he was hearing. And he would have been concerned, well, did he not reach for his weapon when he heard the gunshot? Because that's what any experienced officer would do. If he was at a scene, a weapon goes off, and he's unaware of what direction it was coming from, his immediate response would be to bear his own weapon in order to be prepared for any further oncoming shots, no?
Exactly. At least, people who think would think that. But they count on us not being able to think. They count on us to just, be that sponge that'll suck up whatever they pour down there for us to absorb. I asked these questions. I've been in the security field for well over 20 plus years. I have 8 felony arrests, 5 convictions, and 3 people serving life. The 3 people that didn't get convicted turned on the people who needed to get them out of jail. But there's no way this officer did not know it was his weapon unless it wasn't in his hand. It wasn't in his possession. And based on my daughter's autopsy report, the coroner even contradicts himself. He says her injuries support the officer's scenario, except there's no gunshot residue on my daughter, her hands, or her wound track, not even on her clothing. So there goes that theory that it was close to her when she got shot. Aside from the fact, like I said, it was a large caliber weapon, it should have blown a hole in my daughter the size of a quarter. It was no bigger than my pinky tip, a female pinky tip, not a female's pinky tip. But at the end of the autopsy report, the coroner says he can't rule out that my daughter wasn't shot from a distance, which the
Go on, carry on.
with the Marine sergeant that I was spoke of that trained snipers. That was his theory that my daughter was shot from a distance. Matter of fact, every expert said, yeah, there's no way she wasn't shot from a distance.
At the time that she was shot, was anybody else present or close by or in the vicinity at the time that she was shot, apart from herself, obviously, and the off-duty officer?
Like I said, I can't even speak to where my daughter was shot. Only thing I have is 14 out of 40 witness statements, and they're cookie cutter. Heard a firecracker, saw her fall. Everybody says they heard a firecracker or what they perceive to be a firecracker and heard her fall. Well, let me be correct. 13 out of 14 said that. The 14th person said, I heard a loud boom, and when people cleared, I saw her laying on the ground.
That sounds like a premeditated, coordinated response that friends would make to cover up for someone else.
Exactly. There's no other reason why it would take you 25 minutes to call 911 and then there only be one phone call out of 40 people at a party, and you know doggone well everybody has a phone.
Let me just make one point clear, because first I want to ask you another question before I do that. Prior to your daughter being shot by this off-duty officer, had you had any other involvement with activism, people killed by cops? Was your opinion already in a negative place as far as officers or law enforcement was concerned?
I had known of different scenarios and cases and whatnot, but I had not formed a quote-unquote opinion that, okay, cops are bad, they're doing this and that. I know that there are bad cops out there. There have to be bad cops. They're good cops. That's just the way people are. It's their nature. But as far as me being as vocal as I am now or doing the things, no, I had not. I would periodically write something. I would periodically go to a organization's meeting or some active event. But I did not, and I still don't have the mindset or the opinion that all cops are bad. I don't. I have cops that are family. I have friends that are cops. My opinion as far as that goes is a silent cop is not a good cop because you're being silent.
Here's a point. Here's a point I want to make here and now. It may be a point that I should use to summarize towards the end, but I feel it pertinent to raise this point now. I've been doing these shows on killed by cops, unlawful killing, police brutality, Black Lives Matter, you name it. I've been doing them for over 3 years now. And the one thing that we constantly observe, and I've said it before now, is that police officers make mistakes. We could understand if they hold their hand up and say, I've made a mistake. Right. But the problem that we have, and the problem that I see over and over and over again, is when they try to cover up the mistake and then criminalize the victim in order to justify their kill.
Exactly.
Now, that's the problem I have with these issues, because as a parent, if somebody comes to you and says, I made a mistake, we've had several individuals who have been shot while being pursued by police with their backs turned to the police and they've been unarmed, and they've not been in the pursuit of criminal activity. But if the police was to turn around and say, well, listen, I got it wrong, I thought that this guy was who I thought he was, but it turned out that he wasn't, we could actually, it won't bring the person back. There'd still be some sort of accountability. But for me, it's a case of, well, at least we've got some peace in our family, that people ain't tainting the family name and calling our child a criminal when he's not one.
Exactly. But that's not the scenario.
And there's no closing in this. There's no genuine closing on this. There's no closure for you. Because now, instead of being able to mourn the loss of your daughter, you're having to fight for the justice.
exactly. And I've been in fight mode since day one. They let my daughter lay at this hospital for over 5 hours before they notified me. Um, Adesha had two cell phones on her when she was shot and killed. She was robbed at the party.
Was she robbed? I take it she was robbed after she was killed,
Right.
because she couldn't have been robbed
The
before
phone,
she was killed. Otherwise, there would have been a real kerfuffle, and somebody would have been able to testify to there being arguments and rows and fights if she was robbed during the
well, if they
party.
were willing to tell the truth, but something happened before my daughter was killed. She has a gash on her forehead that the coroner never speaks about, but he took photos of. There's abrasions to the outside of one of her knees. The coroner took photos of that, but he never mentions it in her autopsy report. He speaks to scars and injuries from when she was a child, her tattoo, her piercings, but he never speaks about these things that are fresh. Not to mention that they changed my daughter's date of death and then proceeded to attempt to cuss me out because I said it was wrong and that they needed to correct it. And then blatantly asked me, what damn difference does it make? You're taking more days from my child's life. That's what the difference is. But that they do tend to victimize the victim, criminalize the victim, and then the family as well. I mean, we're suffering through the harassment from the police department. All last year was about my son's vehicle. His music's too loud. Somebody's complaining. They come over here. My son hadn't even been home for a week. And, we got to complain about his music. Well, when? He hasn't been here. He changed vehicles. We're looking for a white vehicle. He doesn't have a white vehicle anymore. And this year just started a couple of weeks ago. Now all of a sudden it's my dog is an issue. Well, my neighbor has a dog, so what's the issue? We need, and I have several people that I know, several people within my organization that are harassed on a regular basis by the police department. But you killed their child, so why are you bothering them? Oh, because we're fighting back. We're not accepting your lies. We're not going to roll over. I mean, time and time again, they'll tell you you didn't see what you saw on a video. I just saw what happened on the video. Well, you don't know the circumstances. The officer was afraid. If you're afraid, don't come to work. But to pursue somebody and shoot them in the back, you're not afraid. You're probably pissed off that you're not in health that you need to be able to catch that person. But I know of a person, and they just went to trial again in the case of Justice Howe out of Zion, Illinois. This police officer was so close to him, he could have tackled him. He could have dived on his back, but instead he shot him twice in the back and killed him. 17 years old. And they just let the cop off. Well, you didn't understand the circumstances of what is on video.
The amount of individuals killed by cops in 2018 continues to rise.
Yes.
But we don't have that many stats to talk about how many have been killed by off-duty cops.
Well, that's because they make certain that, and this is in every state in the United States, they underreport, they mislabel, and they expedite the situation in such a way that the information is never logged as a police officer involved shooting. It takes outside witnesses. It takes somebody willing to speak up, despite their fear of retaliation from the police department and the police officer, that this is something that happened. And as far as off-duty police officer shootings, they are increasing at a rapid rate. Um, and then also the scenario of off-duty police officers being shot by on-duty police officers. But in each of those cases, the on-duty officer is a Caucasian and the off-duty officer is an African American. And I think there was just another case last month of that happening. But they make a point of making sure that it's underreported or that it's mislabeled or the investigation is still being held up so that it cannot be labeled as an officer-involved shooting resulting in death. You know, it's taking families speaking up. It's taking videos being exposed and people speaking up about it before that to come out. And I mean, we've seen on video that an officer will shoot you in the back and throw down a weapon and say that you had it. You know, or claim that they thought a toy gun was a real gun when it's obvious that it's a toy gun. No. You know, you're running away from them is grounds to shoot you. Standing your ground is grounds to shoot you. There's no situation or scenario where you're safe. You do what they say, Philando Castillo, and they shoot you dead. Sandra Bland, you're already locked up, but they're not satisfied. They kill you anyway. You know, they need to seriously do a lot of psychological evaluations on these officers and delve into their past. Look at what kind of childhood they had. Were they somebody who was bullied? Were they somebody who was physically abused by a family member or friend? Are these people mentally stable? They come up out of the military and they don't even get vetted. Just because you were in the military, you can automatically become a police officer. And in the state of the United States, it takes you longer to become a barber than it does to become a cop.
We've just got somebody in the chat asking. You know, she says, "Sorry not to be a racist, but was it a black or white police officer who killed your daughter?"
Black.
No.
And you know, they wanted to try to mislabel that as a black on black crime. No, that's a blue on black crime because even though he was off duty, they're still protecting him as though he was on duty.
Here's a question. Why would somebody be carrying a concealed weapon in a party in their home?
That's the question I asked, only to get the standard legal right of an officer to maintain a weapon on his person at all times. Well, I know that, but he's at his house at a party with people he invited. Only person there that they did not know was my daughter. And I said, how can, out of all the people at a party, the only one that ends up injured or dead is the one that didn't know anybody but one person there? If they didn't want her there, they could have told her to leave. She had family members within walking distance. She had 2 cell phones on her. She could have called anybody, including myself. I would have came and got her.
Yeah. If they didn't want her there, they could have just asked her to leave.
Right. It wouldn't have been a big deal to her. She would have left. She would have left.
In your daughter's autopsy, was there any reports as to how much alcohol that she had consumed? Would she have been way over the limits, drunk, silly? What level would they have placed her at with the amount of consumption that she had had that day?
I do believe they had it at 0.9, which did not make her drunk. Made her over just a percentage over the legal limit for driving. But like I said, she's of legal age. They're serving alcohol at the party. She's not driving. So that was not even an issue. I actually had an officer tell me, well, maybe you don't know how your daughter is when she's drunk. I said, well, she wasn't drunk, remember? Oh, yeah. Well, maybe you don't know how she is when she drinks. Well, unfortunately for you, I do. Well, maybe you don't know how she acts when she gets around strangers. Okay. I looked at the officer
So
and I
so so
said,
let's just, what was he trying to suggest? Because for him to make that assumption, sorry Yolanda, for him to make that assumption, for him to try and create this scenario, there must be something that he's trying to tell you from what took place, that he's aware of, that you're obviously not aware of. So why hasn't he enlightened you as to what was taking place when he wants to suggest that you don't know what your daughter is like when she's around strangers drinking? Because that's the insinuation, right?
well, no, that was his insinuation that I don't know what she's like, but it wasn't because he quote unquote knew something. He was trying to get me to say, well, yeah, maybe I don't. Or, she could have. Therefore, they would have something to come back with later.
But as you've already said at the beginning of the show, yours is a close-knit family. You knew each other
Exactly.
very well. So
Exactly.
you've seen them at their best, you've seen them at their worst. You know
Yes,
what
I
they're
have.
like, you know?
Yes.
So
Yes, absolutely.
so for them
I
to
mean-
try and tell you that your daughter was something that she was not, or she was behaving in a way that you know that she didn't, how did that leave you feeling?
Angry, very angry. Um, it leaves me in fight mode. I've been in fight mode the entire time. I've even had, which I don't have it right here in front of me, but I was stung. Let me tell you the scenario. At my daughter's wake, I was stung 8 times by wasps. Wasp stings are the worst thing you can have next to African bees. And I had no idea that it happened. I was that numb. When I went to the doctor, he asked me, how come you didn't know you got stung by these wasps? I told him what happened. He said, no, you need to go talk to somebody because your mind has set your body on normal. I went to see a psychologist and a psychiatrist. They both start crying while I'm telling them what happened to my daughter. And they said, well, how come you're not crying? I said, I haven't cried since the funeral. It'll be 6 years in July, on July 8th. I still have not cried since my daughter's funeral. Not because I don't want to or that I don't feel it coming. Excuse me. It just won't happen.
Well, they haven't give you room
Right.
to
I
cry
cannot grieve.
because there's no closure.
Right. Right. And that's the thing. The psychiatrists and psychologists agree. They coined a phrase for me and everything, but basically what it means is that I will not be able to grieve for my child and cry until I get closure, which I haven't got.
You say it's been 6 years, July, since your daughter was fatally shot and killed in the home of a off-duty police officer who was staging a party. Was this party in your locality, or was it somewhere at a distance from where you were?
It was maybe 7 or 8 miles away from where I lived.
Okay.
Less than a 15-minute ride.
Yeah, but it wasn't your immediate community, so to speak.
No.
Okay. So almost, in a sense, you're I wouldn't say that you're alien to that community, but there would be no loyalty to you from that community.
No. And like I said, we actually have family members within walking distance of where she was at.
And she knows these family members that are in walking distance.
Right.
So if she was
Right.
uncomfortable and she had an opportunity, she could have just walked away and...
Right. No problem. No harm, no foul.
So, seeing as the police are quite keen on creating their own scenarios as to what takes place in order to mislead and justify their unlawful killing of innocent victims who are not in the pursuit of criminal activity, what could we assume took place that would prompt an off-duty officer to draw his weapon, discharge it, aiming it at an unarmed victim, shooting and killing them dead at his home?
Well, one statement that was put out uh, on a blog here in Detroit called Crime in the D. Somebody had put the statement out that right before the weapon went off, the officer and his wife were tussling over what they said was something, but it turned out to have been the weapon. Do I think that it was intentional? I won't say that. I won't say that it was intentional shooting of my child. But for them to have said it was an accident, all I simply said was prove it. And, we'll have to accept that. But instead of coming with that proof that it was an accident, the truth of how it happened, we started finding out different things like Adacia was shot at 12:05, but 911 wasn't called to 12:30. Okay, well, why did it take so long? Then it was, we got the witness statements, and then we started seeing this cookie cutter account. Heard a firecracker, saw a fall. Heard a firecracker, saw a fall. Where were you at? I was over by the garage. My daughter was over by the fence at the front of the yard. Where were you at? I was over on the grass by the trampoline. Well, if you were over there, how could you see her fall? This is the thing. How can you be in several different locations throughout a dark backyard with multiple people in between you and the victim, but everybody can see her fall? If everybody else could lock on this location and see her fall, why is it that the officer didn't know it was his weapon? If everybody else is looking at you,
for her to have reached for his weapon, she would have had to have been standing right next to him, unless she's got some, I don't know, Mr. Gadget arms where she can do this thing round corners. So let's be realistic here. For her to have reached for his gun, which was concealed, and if she wasn't known to him and he wasn't known to her, she wouldn't have known he was an off-duty officer with a concealed weapon anyway.
Exactly.
So why would she have? Why would she have even wanted to have reached within his clothing?
Exactly. And then there's the situation of one of the witness statements is, I was standing right next to him. I never saw her. So how is it that my daughter is supposed to get between these two individuals, but one never sees her, and he's standing there having a conversation with the perpetrator?
But if she was standing right there, why didn't she see her fall? Hear the gunshot, see her reach for the gun, and was there a scream? Was there a shout? What happened? Because, gun goes off accidentally, people scream.
Right. And I have the 911, and they don't know this, but I don't really care about revealing it now. But I have the 911 CD from the first call till they cleared the scene. When this woman calls in, she says, somebody got shot in my house. We don't know who did it, but they're not here. The operator says, whoa, hold on. If you don't know who did it, how can you say they're not there? She says, well, anyway, they 25 as of today. They either shot in the arm or the chest. What do you want us to do? I mean, she sounds like she's ordering chicken.
Well, we're talking about your daughter.
Right.
We're talking about a life, an innocent life.
Exactly. Then when the operator finally gets her to go to my daughter to see where she's shot at, you don't hear anybody screaming, crying, saying, oh, my God, anything like that. You don't hear anybody doing CPR on her. You hear nothing in the background. But it's 40 people at this party. I can understand being in shock and awe and you feel like you can't speak, but it doesn't strike everybody the same way. There's no way it would be absolutely silent.
Listen, let me just explain this. I'm sat here in my studio, and I'm having this conversation with you live on air right now. And my stepson, my son-in-law and my stepdaughter have arrived to watch the Anthony Joshua fight, which is going on later on tonight because I booked it for them. But while I'm talking to you with headphones, I can actually hear them in the next room having a conversation. They're not shouting, they're talking, and there are kids out there.
Right.
So how much more would you expect to hear if there was a party going on, someone had just been shot, killed, and I'm just gobsmacked as to how you can say that when you hear the 911 call, it's silence.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. And my dear friend Jerry Summers, who's currently watching, says none of this adds up. Not his words, I'm paraphrasing. He said it doesn't add up, and he says it's very unreal. Wow. Another person asked the question, was he undercover? I'll answer that for you now. He wasn't undercover. It was his party. It was his house, and they were his guests. And your daughter went along with somebody else that was invited to the party as their guest, as a +1. And within 45 minutes of arriving to this man's party, your daughter was shot dead.
Yes.
Now, that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Not now, not 6 years ago, and not any time in between.
Right.
And up to now, you've still not been given a reasonable explanation as to
No, I haven't.
how your daughter died, so that you can have some closure and begin the grieving process which is necessary for every parent who loses a child.
Exactly.
So what steps have you taken to try and uncover the truth since the shooting, the fatal shooting and killing of your daughter?
I had a petition up for a year and a half, petitioning, asking for signatures to press the prosecutor to reopen my daughter's case, because the city of Detroit went into bankruptcy, so they suspended the investigation into my daughter's shooting. And then within the time frame of it being suspended, shortly thereafter, the prosecutor closed the case and cleared the officer of all wrongdoing, though the investigation had not been completed. So I created a petition to get that reopened, get her case reopened. For some reason, we were really struggling to get signatures. It stopped short of 1,800 in a year and a half, which is ridiculous, because when that guy shot that lion on the reserve in Africa, they had over 10,000 signatures in the first hour. Oh, okay. It was an old lion. It's an animal. I mean, not knocking it, because I love animals.
Yeah.
But it's an animal. It wasn't a person. People have their minds severely twisted, where you're more concerned with how somebody treats a dog and sending them to jail.
Yeah.
And I love dogs. I've lived with dogs all my life, have one now. But you want to send them to jail because they left a dog outside with no water, but say nothing of somebody who was murdered.
Yeah. Donna Faye asked this question. I'm sorry to just cut in there, but Donna Faye asked this question. What makes this officer so popular in his community? Do you know?
I don't know. I know that his wife and him, I guess they're very sociable. One of the people that was a witness at the party, her and her coworker work at the grocery store. They invited them. I guess, him being a cop, maybe he's fixing tickets for people or whatever. But this was his family members and his friends, his coworkers. It was a fish fry. We know that they were serving alcohol. They admitted that they were serving alcohol. For them to sit up and say they didn't believe that this officer had any, I even asked him, I said, you don't think he fixed himself a short? He drank a deuce while he was talking to his friend, took a sip out of his wife's cup. Well, no. It became gospel the moment he said, no, I haven't drank. They never even checked him, which wasn't protocol procedure. They were supposed to cuff him, take him to the hospital, draw blood, not do a breathalyzer, draw blood, check him for drugs and alcohol, take him to the police station and await those results. They didn't even take his statement or his clothing that evening. They waited till the next day. They gave him time to sober up. I'm gonna call it what it is. They gave him time to sober up.
Here's
I don't know.
here's the thing, Yolanda. I mean, we're just ordinary people, right?
Right.
Living ordinary lives. But do you think it's a wise thing for somebody, whether they're a undercover officer or not? Do you think it would be a wise thing for somebody to be carrying a concealed weapon at a party where drinks are flowing? And,
No.
and more importantly, do you think somebody of authority, right, with huge responsibility, right, would be acting in appropriate manner whilst drinking alcohol and partying to be walking around with a concealed weapon?
He was extremely irresponsible.
So
There was
if
no,
so
there
if
was
you
no need for him to have had it.
no
Like I said, there was no need for him to have had the weapon. You're at home. This is your party. So what were you expecting? I mean, you're just so comfortable with that gun on you that you can't go a night without it. I mean, if that's the case, do you sleep with it on you when you go to bed? You shower with it? I mean, what part? I mean, what is it that much a part of you that you cannot go without this weapon? There was no reason for it. They never said whether or not any of his coworkers had their weapon with them. But here's the thing: he was dancing at this party with several different people. That was within the statements, and based on Detroit, Michigan's police policy, they cannot be participating in any kind of sport activity with their weapon on them, and dancing is considered a sport. It doesn't have to be ballroom or some other kind. Dancing, period, is considered a sport. It's a physical activity. You should not have your weapon on you. One of the people that did the statement said that they knew he had his gun on him because his shorts kept sliding down. You didn't have a belt on tight enough to hold your shorts up, but you were carrying a weapon.
Here's the thing. My dear friend Jerry Summers, former chief of police, has just made the point that major policy violation if the officer is drinking. In other words, an officer should not be carrying his weapon, open or concealed, while he's actually under the influence of alcohol and drinking, especially in public, whether it be at a party or a function of some sort. And it was Donna Hayes who asked the question as to what made him so popular, not Donna Faye. So I needed to correct that. And also Donna Faye does say it's against the law for citizens to carry a weapon where alcohol is being served.
Exactly.
So if all of these things put it together, whether it be an officer or a citizen, if it's a major policy violation for the officer, if it's against the law for a citizen, why hasn't any of that behavior been cited and brought forward, and yet the officer has been cleared of all wrongdoing?
Because that would be an admission of guilt. The city is trying to save its own behind. They're worried about me suing the city. Money's not going to bring Adesha back. My child did not come here with a price tag on her toe. No. She was of value to me and my family. I actually had spoke with a deputy prosecutor, and his question to me was, did my daughter have any kids? I said, no. He said, what? She's never even been pregnant? And I'm like, what?
What's that going to do with
it? What does that have to do with anything? Okay, one, no, she has never been pregnant. So she's a 24-year-old African-American female. She's an anomaly to use in some way, shape, form, or fashion because she's never been pregnant or had a kid. My daughter was of value to me and my family. My ex-husband and I are still alive. We wanted to see what else Adacia was going to do.
Her potential.
Her siblings are here.
Yeah.
You know, everything that was robbed from her. You didn't just steal her life from her. You stole her life from us.
Yeah. Wow.
And there's no accountability. But here's the thing: the prosecutor said, "Well, we're trying to handle this because we don't want you to take anything into your own hands because then we'd have to prosecute you and put you in jail." Oh, if I do something about it, I go to jail. He kills my daughter, and this is exactly what happened. They sat him at a desk for 2.5 months and then put him right back out on the street.
Wow. And that's been a common practice for many officers over the last. I think they started taking some of these figures from 2013. These killed by cops kind of stats that we've been having. And have been on the constant rise since then, but we've had very few officers held accountable for these deaths,
right?
And even fewer have been penalised in any way, shape, or form, bar from being put on a desk for a few weeks or a couple of months and then put right back out there to carry on their killing sprees, which some of them have gone on to do. Yes,
you have habitual offenders. There wasn't even any disciplinary action for his weapon being discharged and him not being in control of it. There was no disciplinary action within the police department for that. They just gave him a different weapon.
One other question, well, not one, I'm going to probably have plenty more. We've still got 45 minutes left to go on the show. But did your daughter, did Adacia have any other, did she have any convictions? Did she have any relationships with the police? Did she have any, fines? Was she known to the police in any way as far as criminality was concerned?
No.
So it's not even, she wasn't even a small petty crook that you could have said that was known to the police in any way, shape or form. And she'd lived a pretty respectful and upright life in the 24 years that she'd been alive. She had no real issues at school where she was expelled or kicked out or violated any laws or regulations to be.
She graduated third highest in her class. That Monday, her birthday, she was going to sign a contract to work with a chiropractor as one of his masseuse for his clients. My daughter was going to be making, starting out, she was going to get hired in at $16 an hour. She had everything she wanted ahead of her. She never got to fall in love. She never had children. She didn't get to do the traveling that she wanted to do. She wanted to perfect playing the guitar because she liked writing songs. There are so many things that they took away from her and her future and ours. Her nephews, she had 4 nephews when she was murdered. The youngest one was a year old. He will be 7 at the end of April. And he still asked me, he said, "Grandma, how come you can't go get Auntie Day?" I shouldn't have to explain to kids why they can't have their aunt anymore. I shouldn't have to look at my kids suffer because they reached an age that she didn't get to. My son and my daughter, my son is 29, my daughter's 27. On their 25th birthday, they did exactly the same things as her cousins did that were a couple of months behind her in age. Everybody cried on their 25th birthday. They just cried. They didn't go to a party. They didn't go hang out with friends. They didn't do anything. They just cried because she didn't get to see it. He took her away a day before her 25th birthday.
Wow. I believe, like myself and like everybody else that's listening at this moment, and all those that are aware of how Adacia died, I can only share in Jerry Summers. He says he's so sorry for your loss, and this breaks his heart. Well, this breaks my heart, even just hearing it as it comes from your lips, Yolanda. and I can hear your heart breaking as you share the story with us tonight, right here on World Jam Global Radio's Issues Today. But this is not just a story of heartbreak. It's a story for closure, for justice, to try and get people to sit up and listen and pay attention. Here in the UK, so many people believe that this killed by cops issue is over-exaggerated. So many people think that it's just a race thing. You know, we asked the question earlier on, was the cop black or white? And you said he was black. This is not a race issue. This is a police issue. This is bad policing at its worst. And this is it's not a race thing. And we've never tried to pull the race card on this. And even when we talk about Black Lives Matter, it's never been a race card. It's always been a fight against the authorities and the law and order who continually prejudice us. And that's us, the poor, the impoverished, those that are unable to stand up and represent themselves because they don't have the financial resources to fight the system. That's where the battle is. And this battle that you're fighting for Adesha is not just for her, but it's for everyone that's fallen before her and those that are yet to fall. Because there are still many more to come. We're only coming up towards the end of March in 2018, and already we're still seeing record highs in the number of individuals. You can't go past Google without seeing more and more individuals being killed by cops this year, last week, the week before. More and more. But it's very heartbreaking. And in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be sharing this stage with Jerry Summers and Jonathan Newton from the National Association of Action Against Police Brutality. And Jerry Summers is a former chief of police. So having these two guys talk about accountability and police reform is going to be a big show here in just 2 weeks' time. I believe it's the 21st of April. We're due to be airing that show. But right here and now, we're talking about your daughter, and this is personal to you. We're not talking about all the hundreds and the thousands that have been killed before her, and we're not talking about those that are going to be killed after her. We're talking about her. This is her platform. This is your platform. This is your pain. This is your justice. This is your opportunity. This is your platform to tell the story in the only way you know how, from your heart. And believe you me, it's getting out there and people are hearing it, and the response is overwhelmingly in favor of. So in looking at all the things that we already know that have taken place, what's the journey for you now? Where are you going to go with this now? How much more fight do you have, and are there any more avenues that you are looking to pursue in order to get justice and closure for the loss of Adesha?
I'm fighting to find a way to get the case reopened. The way that the prosecutor, and let's be clear on something. Police officers get away with murder because prosecutors do not do their job.
Absolutely.
Because if they did, cops would understand that there's consequences for your actions, and it wouldn't be a habitual, repetitive act. And it's at an epidemic, pandemic rate. So people in the UK, take your blinders off and wake up. This is something that happens absolutely every day, multiple times a day, multiple states, multiple cities. It's not something that is being blown out of proportion because a few people get killed. It happens absolutely every day. And in every form that you could think of killing a person, they have killed someone. So to say that what's next, the way that the situation has been presented to me, I have to come up with new evidence in order to force the prosecutor to reopen my daughter's case. Video, somebody willing to speak up, tired of carrying this cop's lie. I hope somebody does get tired of carrying his lie and they tell the truth of how my daughter died, because we deserve that. My family deserves that. We have a right to know. why you thought that it was worth taking her life. What was so damn important to you that you had to take my daughter's life?
We can't even begin to imagine what could have possibly been taking place out in that garden for the officer, because we let me just rewind a minute, because earlier on, and I wanted to raise this earlier on, because earlier on we were talking about how well your daughter did, how high she graduated, what her future was, what her potential was, how she hadn't had a chance to fall in love. She didn't have any children. She hadn't been even pregnant yet. She had no run-ins with the law. She had no issues at school. There was no bad record, no blemish, so to speak, on her character
Right.
as she was raised, up until the time that she was 24 years old and 364 days.
Yes.
But yet they want us to believe that this distinguished individual who has done so well so far, had progressed so much in her life, and had educated herself to a level where she had graduated with such high marks, was foolish enough to risk her life by playing with a deadly weapon.
Right.
And they want us to believe this.
Yeah, they desperately want us to believe
But
that.
there is no evidence to support that that's what took place.
None whatsoever.
So out of the 14 witnesses, did any of them say that they saw her reach for that gun?
No, not one. All they said was, heard a firecracker, saw her fall, except for the 13th person said, I heard a boom. And when people moved, I saw her laying on the ground. But nobody says they saw her reach for a weapon. And I'm gonna give you the 5 stories so that you can understand what I'm saying.
Let's hear these
Okay.
5 stories.
Okay, day that she was shot, Sunday. It was a side-by-side hug. Monday, it was a face-to-face hug. Tuesday, she was reaching for him from behind. Wednesday, she's reaching for him from behind while he's dancing with his wife. Thursday, she's doing an exotic dance on the ground. An exotic dance on the ground with him and his wife there. I know a lot of bold females, I really do, but I don't know anybody that it would be that bold as to, they try to imply that she was trying to entice him or get his attention, that would do something like that at his house with his relatives there and his wife. I don't know anybody like that. And I'm 50 years old.
I don't know. I don't know any
But I don't
wife.
know anybody
Yeah,
like
I don't know any wife that would allow a pure stranger to come into
Right.
their home and do that to their husband,
Right.
and take that either.
Right. So to say that the craziness of their story continued to progress till it got to that point, and a lot of people remember the last story for 2 reasons. It was the most sensational, salacious one, and it was the last one that they told, because at that point I had enough, because I wasn't hearing these stories directly from the police department. The press would be at my door every morning, 10 o'clock, boo, boo, boo. Miss McNair, did you hear the latest story that the police are saying about your daughter? And I go on, and hear this and make a statement about it. And it just kept going and going. And that time, I done had enough of them in this bull. Y'all not even smart enough to get in a room, come up with your lie, and then tell everybody to stick to it. Y'all so stupid, you're going to put out something different every day. Like, people are not going to pick up on the fact that they're lying.
I would imagine my dear friend Jerry Summers would say that they were panicking.
Yeah. And everybody who had a little bit of authority was throwing out a little story and, totally forgetting about the one that was said the day before. Instead of just saying no comment, our statements, our decisions haven't made changed or da da da. They, oh no, this was what happened, or that's what happened. And we're still sitting up here saying what happened. I saw my daughter before she went to the party. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't high. She wasn't acting in any kind of erratic way. She told me she was going to go to the party to celebrate her upcoming birthday. My ex-husband was there talking with our son and one of my cousins. She said goodbye to me. I gave her a kiss on the forehead. I'll see you in the morning. We got one more day before you turn 25. Had this big old party planned for her and everything. I get the phone call. I go to the hospital and see my baby laying there on this gurney. And everything changed. It went from a birthday party to a funeral.
Take us back to the moments that you were called. How did that call come? What was it like? What was said, what was the first word said to you?
My youngest daughter has 4 kids with her ex-boyfriend. They were together at the time. They were engaged, actually. And he called me because the young lady that took my daughter to the party called her boyfriend and told him to come tell us what happened. And initially they told us that Adacia was in some sort of accident. So we're thinking they were in the car. Somebody hit the car. She's at the hospital. I got to go get, then they changed it to no, Adacia got shot. But he called. He said, "Ma, you got to get to Sinai Grace Hospital. They've been shot." And I'm like, "What?" He said, "I don't know anymore. That's all they told us. But we getting ready to go. You got to get there." At the time, I was working with my second husband. Let him know what was going on. Told my supervisor and spoke to him on my way out the door. I wasn't even waiting to see if it was okay. He had somebody to cover my work that out. I'm gone. I do what I do for my family, not for a job. So, rushed to the hospital, and I'm praying against everything, but I knew it. I already knew. After I got the phone call, I was in the process of putting everything that I had with me in my bag so I could leave. And it was just like somebody stood behind me and just pressed down on my shoulders and forced me back down into this chair. And when I felt that, I knew my baby was gone. But I had to make sure it was mine that they were talking about. So I get to the hospital. It's a bunch of 20-somethings sitting over, and everybody's staring at me. Okay. They take me to the back. I'm waiting on the doctor to come. She wants to sit down and get comfortable. And well, Adacia, lady, cut to the chase. Did my child die? And she said yes. And I hadn't even had time to process that. And I was in the process of sitting down when my youngest daughter was walking through the door with her fiance. She was 3 months pregnant with my only granddaughter, which Adacia told her she was carrying. So I had to tell her. They both falling apart because they love my daughter. So I tell them, sit down, tell him, try to get her calm. She's pregnant. We can't have that. Try to get her to calm down some. I go in the back, and the guy that's taking me back there stops at the door and takes a deep breath. And I'm looking at him, and I'm trying to figure out, why in the hell do you need to take a deep breath? I'm supposed to be seeing my child on the other side of this door. Why do you need to take a deep breath? Step in, and sure enough, there's my baby laying there.
24 years old, 364 days.
Yes. And that was one of the first things that shot through my mind is, but her birthday's tomorrow. And I looked at her, kissed her forehead. I hugged her. I held her for a while, and then I thought, okay, I don't really know the circumstances about how my child was shot. So let me not mix my DNA with whatever they need to check and find. So I laid her back down. They told me where she got hit, and I got ready. I started opening her gown to see where she was shot at, and then I closed it. I said, I'm not ready to see that. I wasn't ready to see this. I'm definitely not ready to see that. And stepped back out, talked to my daughter. Her fiance asked them, did they want to see her? And my daughter said, I got to, because I can't believe it's her. Even I know you're not going to lie to me, I can't believe it's her unless I see it. Took them back. And simultaneously, when they both saw her, the first thing out their mouth was, come on, Day-Day, get up. Day-Day was her nickname. And they just kept saying, come on, Day-Day, get up. Please get up. No parent wants to see their child in that much pain. And that's a hurt you can't fix. You know, they bump their head, they bruise their knee. You can hug them, tell them you love them, rub it. It's going to be better. Fix it, you know, put a Band-Aid on it, whatever. But that's something you can't fix. And then I had to go find Audacious' brother and tell him, tell my cousin, go to her father's house, tell him, contact my family and tell them, you know, out of my cousins, it's 11 of us, between my siblings and my cousins. And my daughter was the fourth child out of our generation born. To tell everybody that.
You know, it's I can hear your pain, and I'm at a loss because I know that the what you need can't come from me. It can't come from our listeners. What you need is the truth, and even if the truth might not be nice, the truth might still be ugly, but at least it's the truth.
Exactly.
And I think that's what the justice system. That's what law enforcement, that's what rogue police officers, that's what the prosecution service, prosecutors fail to realize and acknowledge. You know, that is the truth that sets us free. You know,
Yes.
as ugly as it is, it still ain't going to be right. It's not going to bring her back. But then at least you know what it is, right?
Yes. And that's the that's the whole thing. You know, I didn't ask you to do anything spectacular. I didn't ask you. I told him, if it's an accident, I'll have to accept it. I don't want him to go it's not about him going to jail. It's not about getting money. We deserve the truth. I'm the one that risked my life to get her here. Literally. I have every right to know why she's not. People don't understand. It doesn't. Your child's your child. But with your firstborn, that's the one that changed absolutely everything for you.
Yeah.
Audacia is the one that made me a mother. I take that role very serious. To say I'll cripple a brick over my kids is that's not an understatement. That's an absolute. And I war every day with my dark side. Because I'm an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth kind of person. I really am. But I don't believe in the sense of the Father being visited upon the Son. Because I could show him how I feel a lot better than I could tell him. But I would not ever do that.
Yeah.
That's just not me.
Has he ever said sorry?
He has never said a word. He has never said sorry. He hasn't sent a letter, had a coworker relay a message, send an email, get on Facebook. Nothing. This officer has never apologized for anything. You apologize when you bump into somebody, when you hold them up too long in line. If you step on their shoe, you'll apologize. But you take a life, you take somebody from me that's important to me, that I love, and you're silent. I'm not getting remorse from that. I'm not getting that it was an accident from that. The police chief at the time, they held a press conference, didn't even tell the family that they were going to do it. And then within the press conference, the police chief says, well, he's remorseful for the situation. What situation? Situation? I could show you multiple situations, but murder is murder. That's not a situation. That's a fact.
You know, he shouldn't have been in possession of a weapon, concealed or not concealed, while under the influence of alcohol at a party in his home where he should have felt safe. He wasn't in fear of his life, so would have had no reason to pull out his gun. There were no other weapons mentioned as being found to suggest that an altercation took place or a confrontation took place where, you know, a weapon was pulled out and he felt the need to pull his out. There hasn't been an explanation of any shape or form to suggest that there was a reason for a gun to even be present in the vicinity at that particular moment in time. And yet, we're still to hear an officer tell a mother that he is sorry for her loss. Now, I don't get that. I'm supposed to be unbiased here and not forming of any opinions, but it is what it is. And as a parent, which I am, I would be absolutely distraught had someone called me to tell me that one of my children was shot dead. And how much more so would you be distraught when someone tells you that your child has been shot dead by a law enforcement officer, whether it be on duty or off duty?
Right. They're supposed to have held up, taken an oath to hold up.
We were raised to respect law and order, right?
Yes.
You were raised, I would imagine, with a strong moral and principled family.
Yes.
To respect authority, to respect the law, to do what was right.
Yes.
And I bet you was brought up in a generation where you got a real ass whooping if you didn't.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, I did the same job as this officer, wore the exact same uniform. Only capacity that made us different was I was security for the water department, which I protected the most valuable resource the state of Michigan had. And I didn't need a weapon to do it. You know, I had so much authority within my position that said officer, if he would have come to my location where I was working at, he needed my permission to come on the property. He couldn't just say, I'm coming on. Unless you're in pursuit of somebody who committed a felony, you need permission to come onto the property. And you got to get it from me. Had as much time with the city as this officer. Same amount of time.
So you're fully aware of protocol?
Yes.
So in your pursuit for justice, where are you sitting right now? What, in your pursuit for justice?
Still pursuing justice, but I co-formed an organization called Protect Our Stolen Treasures, which our acronym is POST, P period, O period, S period, T period, all capital letters. I'm the president of POST. We are formed of family members within the city of Detroit who have lost loved ones to police shootings. In every scenario thus far, no justice. And we help families all over this country. When they're seeking justice, we put them in touch with trusted attorneys. We put them in touch with social workers. Whatever they need, we try to make certain that they have. We're in the process of getting ready to open up our office. We are a nonprofit. The last thing any of us wanted was somebody to say that we're making money off of our child's death. I never wanted a dime. I never asked for a dime. I wanted the truth. And that's something that we help them pursue.
So if the state was to approach you and suggest a payment, a settlement, what would your response be?
I need to know the terms and conditions, because if they want me to sign a gag order, it would never happen. If I did take some money, it will go directly right back into POST, into other organizations that I know that are legit, that help families and family members, because they don't understand the aftermath of this situation. People lose their homes, their jobs, their vehicles, their ability to work, health insurance. They don't get psychological help. A lot of them don't have insurance, so they don't get any kind of psychological help for trying to cope with the loss of a loved one. There are people that become suicidal, that self-destruct, and there's no help for them. That's where I would put that money. I don't need it in my pocket. I know how to work. I've been doing this since I was 12 years old. I'm good at it. So I don't need that money. I need the truth. But if I were to be approached with a settlement, as long as you don't try to put a gag order on me, fine, give me the money, and I'm going to show you exactly where it's going. And I'm going to put it into getting these laws changed.
Donna Faye mentions a family split up, and that's where I was going to try and go to next. It's a very strong family that can hold it all together and stay together in the aftermath of something as life impacting as this. And you know, we do have some real success stories, like Uncle Bobby and Auntie B, you know, who are activists together, and have stayed strong. You've got Jackie and Kenneth Johnson, who are parents of Kendrick Johnson, who have stayed strong, but not everybody has a success story to tell after a life impacting situation like this. Tears their family apart. Sometimes children, younger siblings, just go off the rails because of the impact that this loss and injustice has on the family. And sometimes the parents get sidetracked from the family duties and responsibilities in pursuit of justice. There are all sorts of issues, repercussions that take place because of the impact that these unanswered loss of life brings to a family and even a community who is badly impacted. How has your community responded in support or in action as far as Adacia's?
They can't believe it. As a matter of fact, I just saw a young lady a couple of days ago that I haven't seen since I want to say 2015. You know, moms, I'm keeping up with you on Facebook. I'm watching what you do. Stay in that fight for Day. You know, we still support you. She said, I talk to people all the time out in Taylor that, you know, miss and love her. To a certain extent, they have rallied around us. They're afraid. I'm going to say that they're afraid to come out to different events and whatnot, because one of the actions that POST has taken on is called the Feet to Fire campaign. It's something that I created where we go to the prosecutor's office. We stay outside. but we call them out on their inability to do their job. We point out the fact that you have killer cops out on the street and you're not doing anything about it. New people in that position, we let them know this is what your predecessor did, and we're not going to have it out of you. It's a multi-state one-day protest in Oregon, Portland, Oregon. They do it with us every month. We've been at it for a little over a year. It's going to be in several more states in the next couple of months where we do this. And it's necessary that we do that we get the communities involved in calling out what's going wrong within it. Police officers that come to your area and patrol don't even live in your city, but they come there to be a cop because it's easy. They come there to be a cop because they know they can get their stacks up and then go somewhere else and make more money. They're not concerned with the community. We are concerned with the community. It's the things that our outreach programs that we're implementing this year are, fixing up neighborhoods. Wherever we have an office, that neighborhood is guaranteed to be fixed up, but not just that neighborhood, blocks and blocks and blocks away. We are, neighborhood gardens, a park where the elderly can come out again and sit and speak and be with each other. That's the reason we have shut-ins, because they have nowhere to go and be with each other. We want to be able to help people get training so that they can get a job, a place where the kids can stay safely while they go look for a job. You may have took the breadwinner away, so now somebody else has to pick up that mantle and get the job to take care of the family. And they can't do it if they got to have the kids with them all the time. They can't do it if they don't have the skill level that is necessary, upgrading their resume, getting themselves mentally prepared to be out there speaking with people again. We put all of this, we're looking at the big picture. We're not doing this little thing where, we're just going to walk around and chant, and that does nothing. They're immune to that. They are so immune to that. We got to look at the fact that when black people get together, people of color, I'll say that, people of color get together, they're being a nuisance, they're causing problems, they're rioting. But when Caucasians get together, they're just having fun. But they tear more stuff up than black people ever have on a regular basis. Tip over police cars, set them on fire, break up buildings and everything. But they're just having rowdy fun. But when black people do it, we're rioting. But we have a cause. We have a reason to be out there. They do it when a baseball team wins, or basketball, or whatever, Super Bowl. Great. But we do it because somebody was murdered, and you're going to tell us shut up and take it, and we're wrong. Well, we're right. We're going to make sure that everybody understands we're right. So in my pursuit of my daughter's justice, I pursue everybody else's too. I told people when I was at Rise Up October, and I do know Uncle Bobby. I work with him with Families United for Justice. I know the Kendricks. I was just with them in Chicago last year. That I will be that voice, not just for my child, but for everybody's parent, grandparent, grandchild, niece, nephew, sister, brother. I'm going to be that voice. When you can't speak, I'll be your voice. I can't tell your truth, but I can speak to your pain. And this is all we want. We want to be able to have that opportunity to tell our truth, to tell the truth, because we know we're not going to get it from the police department.
I know that you work alongside a lot of other women, mothers who are struggling with similar issues or circumstances, pain, like what you're going through. And we've been talking, over the last week or so, we've been talking about setting up additional shows so that these can tell their truth, tell their stories.
Yes.
How has this felt for you today, just being able to share your story today, Yolanda?
I appreciate you asking that question because a lot of people don't know or even understand. Just to be heard, it helps you with your sanity. It gives you a little more power because you'll be able to speak about your loved one as the person they were. Love them and get other people to know that there was somebody that was loved, that was worth a lot to me. To be able to have this forum and this opportunity to speak, it's great. I'm going to say it's great. It's painful, but it's good to be able to get this out and to say, I'm not just in my own world screaming about my child. I don't mind letting the world know about my child. My child was supposed to be known by the world. Not like this, but she was supposed to be known by the world. I have a young man in California that's a rapper. He's doing a song for my daughter. He was so moved by the situation that he's doing a song. He's coming here to Detroit to perform it once he's finished. It's important that people know they're not alone and that this pain they feel, I'm going to be honest, it doesn't get better. People tell you it'll get better with time. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to be honest. They don't. You have no clue. You could not have gone through this and tell somebody it'll get better. And it is the circumstances that makes it hard to get better. The continuous lying, the continuous harassment, the continuous defamation of character, assassination of character, attack on your family. It's not a one-hit wonder where they just kill your kid and just move on. They keep coming after you because you won't lie down and take it.
And I suppose that's even harder still, isn't it? The fact that because you want the truth, they now come after you as well.
Yes. Me, I could take it. I don't have a problem. Bring it. I'm a fighter. My kids are fighters. But when you start trying to pick apart my family, it puts me back in that dark place. I'm going to be honest. And I work very diligently not to be there. And I have to consciously do that. And I want people to know and understand. These families, these mothers, these people who are choosing this path, it is a conscious decision. It's not because it's the only thing that we could do. Everybody knows exactly what we can do. But this is our conscious decision to change the culture, the laws, and the way that things are going. And in their effort to stop us, they keep killing. Think about it. It's their effort to stop us. Well, shoot, if that story get too old, they'll be on to the next one and on to the next one and on to the next one. Because, they so into running to the new thing. The next one, nothing ever get done. One of the things they're supposed to be doing also is going back and looking to see where these people are. Where's the officers? We're putting together a data bank with other organizations to keep account of where these officers are. Whether they left the department, went to another department, got fired, whatever, resigned, we need to know where they are. And we also need to know whether or not they're still holding on to their peace officer's license. Because that's what allows them to be a cop wherever they go. You need to give up that license. You're not going to run around with that get out of jail free card. So, we have a lot under our umbrella that we're doing, and we have a lot of organizations that we work with. But it's necessary that we do all of this. It's necessary that we do this because this is my way of protecting my family. This is my way of protecting Adacia. This is my way of protecting my country. Don't tell me that we are not patriotic. We don't have loyalties. We got more than y'all ever had. But we know and understand the village and the community better than you ever will. And it's not a black thing or white thing, because I know mothers of all creeds and creations that have lost their children. And now they are my sisters. I got the biggest family in the world.
How much of a support has the individuals and organizations that you have worked with over the last 6 years, how much of a support has that been for you and a comfort to your family?
It's a great support. I know that none of us sleep, but at any given time, I can pick up a phone, call somebody. They can pick up the phone and call me. You know, you'll get a person that'll just go into one of our threads and say, I can't sleep, and they'll get 6 responses. What's going on? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. It don't make a difference what time it is. You're always going to have somebody there. We're always there. It's always somebody on post page. Me or one of the other core members. You can always go to that page and find one of us there. Just type in, I need some help. I need to talk. Somebody's going to respond. That is a great comfort. Support. As far as I know, everybody mentions Post. They like us, not just because we support them, but because we're making strides and efforts, and we include people. We're inclusive. You know, we don't say, well, we can't work with them, or we can't work with. We don't do that. We don't do that click stuff. One of the rules of Post is there's no egos allowed. And I mean, you could literally go and see that's pinned at the top. No egos. Can't have an ego and be up in here. Because this isn't about you, it's about us. And until you understand us, it has no color, has no gender, it has no status. It's just us, all of us, fighting for justice.
You know,
that's just the way we are.
I think that's we're right where we need to be. 2 minutes before the show ends. I don't think you can finish it any other way than you just did, Yolanda.
Thank you.
I think it's been a tremendous opportunity to hear about Adesha and how you lost her and just how much she means, because it's not how much she meant, and she's still living for you. She's still living in you. And until that day you get justice and closure, this fight goes on. So
yes, it does.
We take our hats off to you, Yolanda. We take our hats off to Post, you know, the work that you do. And if there's anything else that we can do to support you now or in the future, please don't hesitate to contact us, and let's consider ourselves friends.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yolanda, this is all we got time for. I just want to thank you again for sharing your story with us on World Jam Global.
Thank you.
Okay, we're out of here.
All right.
World Jam Global Radio. This is Clarity. This is Clarity.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time.
Well, just in case you were wondering, that was Yolanda McNair. A mother's worst nightmare.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime.
And we are going to be keeping in touch with that story and updating you whenever we get information.
I paid for my crime.
And no doubt we'll be visiting Yolanda and the mothers of Post.
About the system, it was all about survival. It was do or die. I had too many rivals.
Parents of stolen treasures.
Stay in school, I learned my lessons in the street. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet.
My name is Kervin Julian. This has been Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio.
Life is so sweet.
We're out of here.
The whole game has been rearranged.